Good afternoon, viewers. We are live again from Sakra World Hospital, Bangalore. Today, I have a distinguished neurologist with me, Dr. Udaya Shankar. He's a consultant in the Department of Neurosciences here. Welcome to this session, sir.
Yeah, right.
Well, he's here to talk about one of the very common disorders which most of the people experience during their life, which is headaches and movement disorders. Well, how difficult it is for an individual who undergoes this, and why is it so important that everybody should be more educated toward headaches and other disorders?
Headache is one of the most common neurological conditions, neurological ailments. In fact, it is one of the most common medical conditions which requires a person to visit a doctor. Apart from its obvious medical significance, it causes a lot of suffering and causes reduction in the quality of life. That's why it is so important.
Right.
Movement disorders are a specific group of neurological conditions which interferes in a person's way of life. It may create a lot of changes in his social functioning.
Right.
And very rarely some of these movement disorders are progressive conditions,
Okay.
which may create problems.
Further problem, if not
if
intervention.
not treated, yeah,
right.
it can create problems.
Right. What are the different reasons for headache? Let's start from the very basic ones.
Let's start from basics.
Right.
First, we should understand what are the pain-sensitive structures in the head. Where is the pain coming from? See, there are certain structures in the face and the head region which produce pain. Interestingly, the brain does not produce pain, even if you injure it, even if you provoke it.
Okay.
There are pain-sensitive structures inside the skull cavity, like certain blood vessels, certain blood-filled structures called venous sinuses, covering of the brain called certain parts of brain called dura mater, and certain parts of brain are sensitive to pain stimulation. Outside the skull, you have the covering of the bone called periosteum, which is sensitive and pain-producing structure.
Okay.
Skin, just the tissue beneath the skin, muscles, ligaments, sinuses, eyes, ears, tooth. These are the various structures which produce pain. So obviously when these structures are either inflamed or pulled like traction or displaced due to various reasons, they produce pain. Okay. And that is typically felt in this region. That is called headache and facial pain.
Okay. Well, you spoke about structural changes and its causes. Yeah. Can stress also lead to headaches?
It can. Studies have shown that stress can trigger particular types of headache, particularly what are called primary headaches. So let's understand what is primary and what is secondary headache. It's easy to understand secondary headaches, where you have an obvious cause of headache like a brain tumor, right, or a blood clot or a pus collection in the brain, which is causing headache. Whereas in primary headaches, most of the investigations for these conditions will be normal. The changes happening in the brain and the nervous system will happen at molecular level.
Okay.
So the stress is supposed to be an important trigger for primary headaches. One more point is it can also act as an aggravating factor in various types of headache.
Okay.
It's an aggravating factor as well as a stress. As a trigger side.
Trigger point.
Trigger.
Yeah. What is the relationship between blood pressure and headaches?
Yeah, it's a very common, understanding by people that I have headache because of I have BP.
BP, yes. What's the relationship? We keep hearing that.
No, it's not so straightforward here. Abrupt rise in blood pressure, very abrupt rise to unacceptably high levels, can cause headache, very severe headache. Okay. And some of the antihypertensive medicines can also trigger headache. There are particular medicines what are called calcium channel blockers, which can sometimes trigger headache. Okay. But your usual well-treated hypertension, normal headache, normal blood pressure or slight increase in blood pressure should not have any bearing on headache.
Okay.
On the other hand, headache suffering can cause wide swings in blood pressure. It can cause irritation, mental irritation, and it can cause some increase in blood pressure.
So it's a vice versa kind of a relationship.
Yeah, it's not straightforward.
Straightforward, right. What if a person experiences headache for a very long time? Does it signify a serious health issue?
Yeah, it seems to be a paradox here. A long-standing headache, long-suffering person. Usually, in neurological practice, does not signify a life-threatening problem. Yes, it's an important problem for the person. The person will be suffering, and there are consequences on the person. But it will not be a life-threatening condition. Most of the life-threatening conditions, dangerous conditions causing headache, are short-lived, short duration, new onset headache, the headache which starts suddenly and started recently, and there will be a worsening day by day.
So it's a progressive headache.
Progressive new onset conditions are a bit worrisome.
Okay.
Whereas a person has same kind of headaches for years together, yes, we know that the person is suffering. But we are more or less clear that he may not be having a life-threatening problem.
Life-threatening condition. Right. Can migraine lead to stroke?
Yes, in some types of migraine, there are instances where it can cause stroke. One of the consequences of migraine is reduction in blood flow and metabolism to certain parts of brain.
Okay.
So yes, this is called migrainous infarction. It is a very well described entity in neurology.
What they should do? So, because we just heard that not most of the headaches are life-threatening. However, this could actually lead to a life-threatening condition.
And it's a very rare condition. So unfortunately, there are no methods where you can really act to prevent it or anything.
Okay.
It is due to certain genetic changes, genetic mutations in certain chromosomes. Yeah.
Right. What are the different types of movement disorders? So coming to the second part of the discussion, which is about movement disorders. So
movement disorders are a category of neurological diseases where a person may have abnormal or involuntary movements.
Okay.
In various parts of the body. Okay. The movements can be either in excess or there can be reduction or absence of movement. Excess movements, we call it as hyperkinetic movement disorders. Absence or reduced movements are known as bradykinetic movement disorders. Okay. A very common, often cited example is the Parkinson's disease, Parkinsonism, which is very well known to population. Here there will be reduction of movements associated with rhythmic shaking or tremulousness of hands, called tremors.
Right, tremors.
Tremors.
I've heard of that.
Tremors can occur independently of Parkinsonism. Okay. There are many causes for tremors. Okay. So one example I gave you about reduced movements.
Yes.
Manifesting as movement disorder is Parkinsonism. On the other hand, excess of movements, hyperkinetic movement disorders are like what I said, tremors.
Right. Epilepsy, does it fall under that?
It is not a movement disorder. It's a separate category of disease. Tremors, and there is a particular type of abnormal movement called coriform movements, where a person will have unpredictable abnormal movement. Dystonia, another type of movement disorder where excess movements will be there. Myoclonus is another type where you have sudden shock-like movements.
Okay.
So on one side you have excess movements, on one side, other side you have paucity of movements.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's a wide range. It's
a very big subspecialty itself.
Right. What is the reason for these disorders? So why does it somebody has it? I mean, I'm talking about specifically the movement disorders. Is it congenital or is it acquired?
It's a very broad question like that. Like I said, it's a very diverse group of conditions. Movement disorder is a diverse group of conditions. It may be as trivial as somebody being very anxious.
Okay.
Like somebody is very anxious, they can start shivering.
Yes.
That is called anxiety-related tremor or exaggerated physiological tremor. And it can be something very complex and something very dangerous and life-threatening as a condition called Huntington's chorea, where you have a genetic problem, a genetic change called trinucleotide repeat expansion. It's a type of genetic change causing rapid progressive decline in various brain functions including movement disorders,
Okay.
ultimately leading to death.
Okay, that's life-threatening.
Yes, some of them are life-threatening.
Okay. So one should not just avoid,
Yeah.
okay, it could be triggered
Yeah.
by the anxiety.
So my
disorder.
point is,
Right.
these are very diverse group of conditions, and it is difficult to say what exactly as a single blanket answer. There are multiple causes, multiple conditions.
Right. So can some of these disorder be inherited from a mother to child or through series of generations?
Yes, applying the same answer my previous question. Diverse group of conditions. Yes, there are multiple movement disorders which are inherited, which run in families.
Okay.
And there are multiple disorders where there is a specific genetic influence. It may not run in families, but it will give an additional risk to the person, for the person to develop that movement disorder.
All right.
Okay. There are different genetic influences in some conditions.
Sure. What are the symptoms for these disorders other than the fact that okay he would have either excessive movement, involuntary, or probably no movement? What are the other symptoms one can identify?
Yeah. So as I said, it's a diverse group, multiple diverse disorders, and they can involve various parts of the nervous system, including the movement related systems. So they may include memory related systems, which cause memory loss in some people. They may cause imbalance in some people if it involves balance related systems in the brain. My point is, it can cause multiple areas of involvement in brain. It need not be a pure movement disorder.
So it can have
Multiple. I'll give you a classical example.
Sure.
Parkinson's, very common condition, very common given example. It is not just tremors and slowness always. It can have changes in the higher mental functions. It can manifest with changes in mood.
Right.
It can cause changes in what are called autonomic functions, like your urinary bladder function,
Right.
sphincter function, and all that. So it can involve various other systems.
Right. Can one recover completely out of this? So what are the possibilities of hope for them?
Yes. Some, as I said, some are easily treatable.
Right.
Right? There are certain conditions which are due to certain specific situations where it develops. For example, in a particular virus infection of brain called Japanese encephalitis, there will be a type of movement disorder. There will be reduction of movements, tremors and all that. If we treat it, a person may come out of it gradually. Similarly, I'll give you one more example. There is one more condition called Wilson's disease.
Yes.
Where there will be a lot of copper deposition in various parts of the body, including brain. It's a treatable condition.
All right.
I am not saying the person will become normal like earlier status,
Right.
but it is fully treatable.
Okay. So that their life would not be really hampered
Yeah.
by that.
So some of the conditions are treatable, not all.
Not all.
But most of the conditions have a method of management.
Okay.
You can intervene and try to improve the quality of life.
Right. Right. What are the lifestyle modifications one individual needs to undergo, say if he or she is suffering from this, any of such disorders?
There is no specific generalized recommendation, but I will confine myself to the common condition, the Parkinsonism. Lifestyle condition, expectations and recommendations will be like increase in activities, mental activities. Okay, being active mentally, like doing crossword puzzles, performing in quiz, attending quiz programs, being active physically, being mobile as much as possible, and of course with the help of physiotherapy. Okay, and there are certain environmental factors which are implicated in Parkinson's causation. Certain vascular risk factors called unhealthy lifestyles should be avoided, like excess of carbohydrate intake, excess of saturated fat intake. Those can be avoided.
Does smoking or drinking play a role here? Because most of the
there is no specific recommendation.
no specific.
So So the point is there are very few generalized recommendations. That
Generalized.
is the summary.
Right.
There are no generalized recommendations.
Well, thank you so much for your time, sir, and thank you, viewers, for joining us. We'll come back soon with another informative session for you all. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy.
Yeah. Thank you.